First contact confusion. The sleek, silvery spacecraft hovered silently above the United Nations headquarters in New York City, its smooth surface reflecting the early morning sunlight. On the ground, a mix of excitement and trepidation rippled through the gathered crowd of diplomats, scientists, and journalists. This was humanity's first official contact with an alien species, and nobody quite knew what to expect. Dr. Samantha Chen, Earth's lead xenobiologist, stood at the forefront of the welcoming committee. Her heart raced as she watched the ship's underside iris open, revealing a soft blue glow. A cylindrical beam of light extended to the ground, and within it, 3 figures began to descend. As the aliens touched down, Samantha's scientific mind went into overdrive. The visitors stood slightly taller than the average human, with sleek, iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer between shades of blue and green. Their heads were oblong, featuring 3 large, dark eyes arranged in a triangle. But what caught Samantha's attention most was their lower body. Instead of 2 legs, the aliens appeared to have 3 slender limbs arranged in a tripod formation. The central alien stepped forward, its 3 eyes blinking in sequence. "Greetings, people of Earth," it said, its voice resonating with an otherworldly harmonic quality. "I am Ambassador Zix of the Trilaxian Confederation. We come in peace and with great curiosity about your world." Samantha stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Zix. I'm Dr. Samantha Chen, lead xenobiologist for this first contact mission. We're honored to receive you and eager to learn about your people." As formalities were exchanged and the aliens were escorted into the UN building, Samantha couldn't help but notice the Trilaxians' fascination with the human delegates, particularly the men. Their triple-eyed gazes seemed to linger on the lower halves of the male diplomats, and they whispered among themselves in their melodic language. Inside the Grand Assembly Hall, seats had been arranged to accommodate both human and Trilaxian physiology. As everyone settled in, UN Secretary-General Adebayo took the podium. "Distinguished guests from the stars, honored delegates of Earth, today marks a historic moment for both our peoples," he began, his deep voice filled with gravitas. "Let this be the beginning of a friendship that transcends the vastness of space." As the speeches continued, Samantha noticed Ambassador Zix leaning towards one of their aides, gesturing subtly towards the male delegates. The aide's eyes widened, and it quickly tapped something into a small, translucent device. Curiosity piqued, Samantha made a mental note to investigate this behavior further. The scientific implications of this first contact were enormous, and she was determined to unravel every mystery the Trilaxians presented. After the formal proceedings, a more relaxed meet-and-greet session was arranged in one of the UN's spacious lounges. Samantha circulated, observing the interactions between humans and Trilaxians. She noticed a pattern emerging. The aliens seemed particularly interested in speaking with the male attendees, their eyes constantly darting to the men's lower bodies. Finally, unable to contain her scientific curiosity any longer, Samantha approached Ambassador Zix. "Ambassador, I hope I'm not being too forward, but I've noticed you and your colleagues seem particularly fascinated by our male delegates. Is there something specific that interests you?" Zix's 3 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a gesture Samantha had begun to associate with excitement or surprise. "Ah, Dr. Chen, your powers of observation are keen. Indeed, we find ourselves quite intrigued by the male of your species. Tell me, is it common for human males to possess 3 lower appendages?" Samantha's brow furrowed in confusion. "3 lower appendages? I'm not sure I understand, Ambassador. Human males typically have 2 legs, just like our females." Zix made a sound that might have been the Trilaxian equivalent of a chuckle. "Come now, Dr. Chen. There's no need for modesty. We've observed quite clearly that your males possess an additional protrusion between their bital limbs. Quite fascinating, really. Is it perhaps a vestigial limb, or does it serve some other purpose?" Realization dawned on Samantha, bringing with it a mix of amusement and embarrassment. The Trilaxians had mistaken human male genitalia for a third leg. She struggled to maintain her composure, torn between diplomatic politeness and scientific accuracy. "Ah, I see the source of confusion, Ambassador," Samantha began carefully. "What you've observed is not actually a third leg. It's a part of human male anatomy related to reproduction. It's called a—" Before she could finish her explanation, a commotion erupted across the room. Trevor Watson, a brash young diplomat from the Australian delegation, had apparently overheard their conversation and taken it upon himself to clarify things for the Trilaxians. "Oi, mate," Trevor called out, striding towards them with a mischievous grin. "You want to know about the third leg, do ya? Well, let me tell you, it's not just for show." Samantha groaned inwardly. This was exactly the kind of cultural misunderstanding she had hoped to avoid. She tried to intervene, but Trevor was on a roll, regaling the increasingly fascinated Trilaxians with exaggerated tales of human male prowess. As Trevor's impromptu lecture continued, Samantha noticed other Trilaxians gathering around, their translucent devices out and recording every word. She caught snippets of their conversation. Phrases like bipedal superiority and evolutionary advantage kept coming up. Ambassador Zix turned to Samantha, all three eyes wide with wonder. "Dr. Chen, this is remarkable. To think that human males possess such a unique feature, it certainly explains much about your species' confidence and achievements. Tell me, does this third appendage aid in balance, or perhaps it serves as an additional manipulative limb for complex tasks?" Samantha felt a headache coming on. She needed to correct this misunderstanding quickly before it spiraled out of control. "Ambassador, I assure you, it's not quite as Mr. Watson describes. Perhaps we could arrange a more academic discussion on human anatomy." But the damage was done. The Trilaxians were abuzz with excitement, and Samantha could already imagine the reports they'd be sending back to their homeworld. She made a mental note to have a stern word with Trevor later. As the evening wore on, Samantha did her best to steer conversations towards more productive topics: the Trilaxians' advanced space travel technology, their societal structure, their own unique biology. But she couldn't shake the feeling that this anatomical misunderstanding was going to have far-reaching consequences. Later that night, as Samantha prepared her preliminary report on the first contact, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Her heart sank as she read the headline: "Dora A. King. Aliens amazed by human male third leg. Evolutionary superiority or diplomatic blunder." Samantha sighed, rubbing her temples. It was going to be a long night, and she suspected an even longer road to true interspecies understanding. As she began drafting a statement to clarify the situation, she couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. First contact with an advanced alien species, and humanity's claim to fame was a misunderstood reproductive organ. Still, as she reflected on the day's events, Samantha felt a glimmer of hope. Despite the confusion and misunderstandings, both humans and Trilaxians had shown genuine curiosity and a desire to learn about each other. It was a start, even if it wasn't quite the dignified first impression Earth's leaders had hoped for. As she worked late into the night, Samantha's mind raced with the possibilities and challenges that lay ahead. How would this anatomical misunderstanding affect diplomatic relations? Would it influence the Trilaxians' perception of human culture and capabilities? And how on earth was she going to explain this in her official report? One thing was certain: the journey of interspecies understanding had only just begun, and it promised to be filled with surprises, challenges, and perhaps more than a few awkward moments. But as she looked out her window at the Trilaxian ship still hovering over the city, Samantha felt a sense of excitement. After all, isn't this what science was all about? Exploring the unknown, challenging assumptions, and sometimes learning to laugh at our own misconceptions. With renewed determination, Samantha turned back to her work. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also new opportunities for discovery. And who knew? Maybe this third leg debacle would one day be remembered as the humorous beginning of a beautiful interstellar friendship. cultural clashes and conspiracies. The morning after the first contact, Dr. Samantha Chen awoke to a world that had fundamentally changed overnight. As she scrolled through her news feed, she was bombarded with headlines ranging from the sensational to the absurd. Alien amazement. Human nails, third leg. Evolution's grand design. Trilaxian traders flood Earth markets with third leg enhancement products. Conspiracy theorists claim third leg misunderstanding is cover for alien mind control. Samantha groaned, realizing the enormous task that lay ahead. She had to correct this misunderstanding before it spiraled even further out of control. At the United Nations headquarters, the atmosphere was chaotic. Delegates from various nations huddled in groups, whispering fervently. Some seemed amused by the situation, while others appeared deeply concerned about the potential diplomatic implications. As Samantha made her way to the main conference room, she overheard snippets of conversations. We can't let them think we're anatomically superior. It could lead to interstellar conflict. But what if we use this to our advantage in trade negotiations? Has anyone actually shown them the truth yet? Entering the room, Samantha found Ambassador Zix engaged in an animated discussion with several human scientists. The Trilaxian's three eyes were wide with excitement as it gestured towards a holographic display of what appeared to be exaggerated human male anatomy. "Ah, Dr. Chen," Zix exclaimed upon noticing her. "We were just discussing the fascinating evolutionary adaptations of human males. Tell me, at what age does the third limb become fully functional? And how does it affect your species' locomotion?" Samantha took a deep breath, steeling herself for what promised to be an awkward conversation. "Ambassador Zix, I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding. What you're referring to isn't actually a third limb. It's a reproductive organ, not used for walking or manipulation of objects." Zix's eyes blinked rapidly in confusion. But the Australian delegate last night, he spoke of its many uses and importance. "I'm afraid Mr. Watson may have exaggerated certain aspects," Samantha explained diplomatically. "Perhaps it would be helpful if we arranged a more comprehensive presentation on human biology." Before Zix could respond, the door burst open, and Trevor Watson strode in, grinning from ear to ear. "G'day, mates. Hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Just thought I'd pop in and see how our new friends are settling in." Samantha shot Trevor a warning glance, but he seemed oblivious to her discomfort. Instead, he turned to Zix with a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "So, Ambassador, had any more questions about our unique human features?" Zix's attention immediately shifted to Trevor. "Indeed. We were just discussing the functionality of the third limb. Dr. Chen here suggests it's not used for locomotion, but surely it must serve some vital purpose beyond reproduction." Trevor opened his mouth to respond, but Samantha quickly intervened. "Ambassador, perhaps we could schedule a proper scientific briefing on this topic. It's a complex subject that requires careful explanation." But the damage was already done. News of the Trilaxians' fascination with human male anatomy had spread like wildfire, and the consequences were beginning to manifest in unexpected ways. Outside the UN building, a crowd had gathered. Some held signs welcoming the aliens, while others brandished more anatomically explicit placards. Street vendors had set up shop, selling everything from third leg enhancement pills to T-shirts emblazoned with suggestive slogans. As Samantha gazed out the window at the growing chaos, she felt a tap on her shoulder. It was Dr. Aisha Kapoor, one of her colleagues in the xenobiology department. "Sam, we've got a problem," Aisha said, her voice low and urgent. "Some of the more conservative nations are threatening to withdraw from the talks. They're claiming this whole third leg business is an affront to their cultural values." Samantha pinched the bridge of her nose, feeling a headache coming on. "As if we didn't have enough to deal with. Okay, let's call an emergency meeting of the scientific committee. We need to get ahead of this before it turns into a full-blown diplomatic crisis." As they hurried down the corridor, they passed a group of Trilaxian delegates huddled around a human anatomy textbook, pointing and chattering excitedly. Samantha made a mental note to have all such materials temporarily removed from the public areas. The emergency meeting was a tense affair. Scientists from various disciplines argued about the best approach to clarify the misunderstanding without causing offense or embarrassment to either species. We could simply show them detailed anatomical diagrams, suggested Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, a renowned physiologist. Absolutely not, countered Dr. Isabella Rossi, a cultural anthropologist. We need to consider the cultural implications. Such explicit imagery could be seen as highly inappropriate by both human and Trilaxian standards. As the debate raged on, Samantha's mind wandered to the broader implications of this misunderstanding. How would it affect humanity's place in the galactic community? Would Earth be seen as a planet of anatomical marvels, or a world of primitive beings who couldn't even explain their own biology properly? Her thoughts were interrupted by a commotion outside the meeting room. The door flew open, revealing a flustered-looking junior aide. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this," he panted, thrusting a tablet into her hands. Samantha's eyes widened as she took in the live news feed. In Times Square, a massive holographic display had been erected, showcasing a larger-than-life image of what the media was calling the Trilaxian tribute to human evolution, a grotesquely exaggerated representation of a three-legged human male. "Oh, for the love of," Samantha muttered, unable to finish the sentence. She turned to her colleagues, her voice filled with determined urgency. "We need to act now. Dr. Tanaka, prepare a comprehensive but tasteful presentation on human anatomy. Dr. Rossi, I need you to draft a culturally sensitive statement explaining the misunderstanding. And someone, please, find Trevor Watson and keep him away from any and all media outlets." As the team scrambled into action, Samantha steeled herself for what promised to be the most challenging public address of her career. She had to find a way to correct the misconception without causing interstellar embarrassment, or worse, jeopardizing the newfound relationship between Earth and the Trilaxian Confederation. Meanwhile, in another part of the UN complex, Ambassador Zix was engaged in a passionate debate with its fellow Trilaxians. "But don't you see," Zix argued, its three eyes blinking in rapid succession. "If humans have evolved this additional appendage, it could explain their rapid technological advancement. Perhaps it serves as some kind of bioantenna, allowing them to receive cosmic knowledge." Another Trilaxian, Science Officer Vex, waved its upper limbs in exasperation. "Zix, be reasonable. It's far more likely that we've simply misinterpreted their anatomy. We should await further clarification from the human scientists." But Zix was not to be deterred. "Think of the implications, Vex. If we can unlock the secrets of this third leg, imagine how it could benefit our own species. We must propose a joint research initiative immediately." As the Trilaxians continued their heated discussion, they were unaware of the growing chaos their misunderstanding was causing across the globe. In Silicon Valley, tech entrepreneurs were already filing patents for third-leg simulation devices. In Hollywood, scriptwriters were hastily reworking alien invasion plots to feature the secret weapon of human male anatomy. And in the murky corners of the internet, conspiracy theories were proliferating at an alarming rate. One popular theory suggested that the Trilaxians were actually desperate to harvest human male organs for their own nefarious purposes. Another claimed that the whole misunderstanding was an elaborate ruse designed to distract humanity from the aliens' true intentions. As night fell on this second day of first contact, Samantha found herself standing before a hastily assembled press conference. Cameras flashed, and reporters from every corner of the globe jostled for position. Behind her stood a united front of human scientists, diplomats, and a somewhat bewildered-looking Trilaxian delegation. Taking a deep breath, Samantha stepped up to the microphone. "Good evening. I'm Dr. Samantha Chen, lead cynobiologist for the First Contact mission. I'm here to address the misunderstanding that has arisen regarding human male anatomy." She paused, searching for the right words. How does one explain the basics of human reproduction to an alien species on live, global television without causing a diplomatic incident? The feature that our Trilaxian friends have mistaken for a third leg is, in fact, a reproductive organ, Samantha continued, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. It is not used for locomotion, manipulation of objects, or cosmic communication. A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the human portion of the audience. The Trilaxians, however, leaned forward, their eyes wide with fascination. While we appreciate the Trilaxians' interest in human biology, we believe it's important to correct this misunderstanding to prevent any further confusion or misplaced admiration. Human males are not anatomically superior to females, nor do they possess any extra limbs or extraordinary abilities related to this organ. As Samantha continued her explanation, carefully balancing scientific accuracy with diplomatic tact, she could see the mixture of emotions playing across the faces of both humans and Trilaxians. There was embarrassment, amusement, and, encouragingly, a growing sense of mutual understanding. When she finished her statement, there was a moment of silence before the room erupted into a cacophony of questions. Samantha fielded them as best she could, with occasional input from her scientific colleagues and the Trilaxian representatives. As the press conference wound down, Ambassador Zix approached Samantha, its three eyes blinking in what she had come to recognize as a sign of contrition. Dr. Chen, on behalf of the Trilaxian delegation, I must apologize for our misunderstanding and any inconvenience it may have caused, Zix said, its harmonic voice tinged with embarrassment. We are still learning about your species, and it seems we have much more to understand. Samantha offered a warm smile. There's no need to apologize, Ambassador. Misunderstandings are a natural part of any first contact situation. What's important is that we continue to communicate openly and learn from each other. As they shook hands, or in Zix's case, upper appendages, Samantha felt a glimmer of hope. Despite the chaos and confusion of the past 2 days, humans and Trilaxians were already demonstrating their ability to overcome cultural differences and work towards mutual understanding. Later that night, as Samantha finally returned to her apartment, exhausted but relieved, her phone buzzed with a new notification. It was a message from Trevor Watson. Oi, Sam. Saw your press conference. Nice save. But listen, I've got this brilliant idea for a human Trilaxian cultural exchange program. Thinking of calling it Three-Legged Race to the Stars. What do you reckon? Samantha groaned, tossing her phone aside. It seemed that despite her best efforts, the third leg saga was far from over. As she drifted off to sleep, she couldn't help but wonder what new challenges tomorrow would bring in this brave new world of interstellar diplomacy. Little did she know that far above Earth's atmosphere, aboard the Trilaxian mothership, a heated debate was taking place, one that would soon thrust humanity into the center of a galactic conflict they never could have imagined. Threat from the stars. As dawn broke over New York City, the Trilaxian ship still hovering above the skyline, Dr. Samantha Chen was jolted awake by the insistent ringing of her phone. Groggily, she fumbled for the device, her mind still foggy from the events of the previous day. Dr. Chen speaking, she mumbled, stifling a yawn. Sam, it's Aisha. You need to get to the UN immediately. Something's happened. The urgency in Dr. Aisha Kapoor's voice instantly cleared the cobwebs from Samantha's mind. What's going on? The Trilaxians picked up some kind of signal last night. They're saying Earth might be in danger. Samantha's heart raced as she hurried to dress. The third leg fiasco suddenly seemed trivial compared to whatever new crisis was unfolding. Within the hour, Samantha found herself in a packed situation room at the UN headquarters. The atmosphere was tense, a far cry from the bemused chaos of the previous days. Military officials from various nations huddled over displays, while diplomats whispered urgently in corners. Ambassador Zix stood at the center of the room, its three eyes blinking rapidly as it addressed the assembled humans. At 300 hours Earth time, our long-range sensors detected an anomaly at the edge of your solar system. We believe it to be a scout ship belonging to the Vexcar Imperium. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Samantha raised her hand. Ambassador, who are the Vexcar? Zix's upper appendages trembled slightly, a sign of distress, Samantha had learned. The Vexcar are a warlike species, Dr. Chen. They seek to conquer and strip mine habitable worlds, enslaving native populations. We've been in a cold war with them for centuries. The room erupted into panicked chatter. UN Secretary General Adebayo raised his hands, calling for calm. Please, let's hear the ambassador out. What does this mean for Earth? Zix's voice took on a grim tone. If the Vexcar have discovered Earth, they will see it as a prime target. Your world is rich in resources, and your species. It paused, glancing awkwardly at the human males in the room. Has certain attributes they might find intriguing. Samantha felt a sinking feeling in her stomach. Ambassador, please tell me this isn't about the third leg misunderstanding. Zix blinked rapidly. I'm afraid it might be, Dr. Chen. Our initial transmission about Earth's unique anatomical marvels may have been intercepted. The Vexcar are always looking for ways to enhance their warriors. They might see humans as a potential source of genetic material. A stunned silence fell over the room, broken only by a snort from the back. All eyes turned to see Trevor Watson, looking sheepish. Sorry, mates, it's just, of all the reasons for aliens to invade Earth, our Todgers wasn't one I'd considered. Samantha shot Trevor a withering look before turning back to Zix. What can we do? Surely your civilization has defenses against the Vexcar. Zix nodded. We do, but our nearest fleet is several light years away. It would take them weeks to reach Earth. We fear the Vexcar scout ship might be here much sooner. General Helena Rodriguez, head of Earth's newly formed extraterrestrial defense force, stepped forward. Ambassador, what kind of time frame are we looking at? Unlikely heroes. The tension in the UN command center was palpable as the Vexcar ship entered communication range. Samantha Chen stood beside Ambassador Zix, her heart pounding as the large view screen flickered to life. The image that appeared was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The Vexcar commander was a towering figure, easily twice the size of a human, with an exoskeleton that seemed to be a mix of organic and metallic components. Its 4 eyes glowed with an eerie red light, and when it spoke, its voice resonated with a metallic growl that sent shivers down Samantha's spine. Beings of Earth, the Vexcar commander rumbled. I am Supreme War Master Cragthor of the Vexcar Imperium. We have detected significant biological anomalies on your world. Surrender your genetic enhancements to us, or face annihilation. Samantha took a deep breath, stepping forward. Greetings, Supreme War Master. I am Dr. Samantha Chen, Chief Xenobiologist of Earth. We've been expecting your arrival. Cragthor's eyes narrowed. You were expecting us. Indeed, Samantha continued, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. We've been aware of your approach for some time. Perhaps you'd be interested in a demonstration of our world's defensive capabilities. With a nod from Samantha, the view screen split, showing footage that had been carefully crafted over the past 72 hours. It depicted human males in laboratory settings, their lower bodies obscured, while beams of energy seemed to emit from their midsections. As you can see, Samantha explained, what you perceive as genetic enhancements are actually advanced biological weapons integrated into our very beings. Every human on Earth is a potential defensive asset. Cragthor leaned closer to the screen, his metallic features contorting in what might have been surprise. Impossible. No species has achieved such integration of organic and weapons technology. I assure you, Supreme War Master, it is very possible, Samantha countered. In fact, we've been expecting an opportunity to test these capabilities against a worthy opponent. The Vexcar commander was silent for a long moment, his glowing eyes scanning the room as if searching for signs of deception. Finally, he spoke again, his voice tinged with a hint of uncertainty. We will need to verify these claims. Prepare to receive a delegation from our ship. Any sign of hostility will result in immediate orbital bombardment. The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in stunned silence. General Rodriguez was the first to speak. "Well done, Dr. Chen. But now we have a new problem. How do we maintain this bluff with Vexcar delegates on the ground?" Samantha's mind raced. "We need a small team, a mix of our best scientists and, well, our most convincing bluffers." Her eyes landed on Trevor Watson, who was trying his best to look inconspicuous in the corner. "Trevor, I can't believe I'm saying this, but we need you on this team." Trevor's face lit up. "Bonzer, I won't let you down, Sam. I'll have those Vexcar blokes believing we can shoot lasers out of our—" "Let's not get carried away," Samantha interrupted. "Ambassador Zix, we'll need Trilaxian support as well. Can you join us?" Zix blinked affirmatively. "Of course, Dr. Chen. I believe Science Officer Vex would be a valuable addition to our team as well." General Rodriguez nodded. "All right, we have our team. Dr. Chen, you'll lead. Take Ambassador Zix, Science Officer Vex, Trevor Watson, and Dr. Aisha Kapoor. Her expertise in xenobiology will be crucial." As the team assembled, Samantha briefed them on their mission. "We need to convince the Vexcar that our biological weapons are real without actually demonstrating them. It's going to require quick thinking and perfect coordination. One slip-up, and Earth could pay the price." Trevor grinned, slapping Samantha on the back. "No worries, Sam. We'll give those Vexcar a show they'll never forget. Maybe we can even convince them our third legs have anti-gravity properties." Samantha sighed, wondering not for the first time if the fate of Earth really rested on Trevor Watson's ability to bluff about male anatomy. But as she looked at her unlikely team, a mix of brilliant scientists, alien diplomats, and one irrepressible Australian, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps their very unlikeliness as heroes was their greatest strength. As they made their way to the designated landing zone, a heavily guarded area in Central Park, Samantha ran through their plan one last time. "Remember, we need to appear confident but not aggressive. The Vexcar are here to verify our claims, not to fight. Trevor, that means no sudden movements or wild claims about laser shooting. Appendages." Trevor nodded solemnly, though the twinkle in his eye suggested he might have a few surprises up his sleeve. The Vexcar shuttle descended from the sky, its sleek, predatory design a stark contrast to the peaceful park surroundings. As it touched down, Samantha and her team stood their ground, presenting a united front of humans and Trilaxians. The shuttle's doors hissed open, and 3 Vexcar warriors emerged. Up close, they were even more imposing than they had appeared on the view screen. Standing nearly 10 feet tall, their exoskeletons gleamed in the sunlight, and each carried what appeared to be a highly advanced energy weapon. The lead Vexcar, its exoskeleton adorned with additional ornic markings, stepped forward. "I am Sub-Commander Zark. We are here to inspect your biological weaponry. Cooperate, and your world may be spared. Resist, and we will not hesitate to use force." Samantha stepped forward, meeting Zark's glowing gaze. "Welcome to Earth, Sub-Commander. We're prepared to give you a comprehensive tour of our facilities and capabilities. However, I must warn you, any attempt to seize or forcibly examine our biological weapons will trigger an automatic defense response. I'm sure you understand our need for caution." Zark's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement or annoyance. "Very well. Proceed with your tour." What followed was perhaps the most surreal and high-stakes tour in Earth's history. Samantha led the Vexcar delegation through a series of hastily prepared research facilities, in reality, a mix of actual scientific labs and elaborately staged sets. At each stop, Samantha and her team presented a carefully crafted mix of real scientific achievements and complete fabrications. Dr. Kapoor explained complex genetic theories that danced on the edge of plausibility, while Science Officer Vex provided Trilaxian verification of Earth's supposed capabilities. Throughout it all, Trevor Watson proved his worth, spinning wild tales of human biological prowess that somehow managed to sound just believable enough to keep the Vexcar intrigued and uncertain. And that's how we learned to channel the Earth's magnetic field through our third legs, Trevor was saying, gesturing enthusiastically at a complex diagram that meant absolutely nothing. Gives us the ability to manipulate gravity itself. It does. Why, I could float right up to your ship if I wanted to. Sub-Commander Zark's eyes narrowed. Demonstrate this ability, he demanded. Samantha's heart nearly stopped, but Trevor didn't miss a beat. Well, you see, it's not something we can just do on command. Takes a lot of energy. It does. Why, last time I tried it without proper preparation, I was walking funny for a week. Isn't that right, Sam? Samantha nodded stiffly, silently vowing to either kill Trevor or recommend him for a Nobel Prize in bluffing, if such a thing existed. As the tour progressed, Samantha could sense the Vexcar's growing frustration. They had yet to see any concrete proof of the humans' supposed biological weapons, but neither had they caught the team in an outright lie. Finally, in a last-ditch effort to uncover the truth, Sub-Commander Zark made his move. Quick as lightning, he reached out and grabbed Trevor, lifting him off the ground with one massive hand. Enough deception. Zark roared. Show us these weapons, or watch your comrades suffer. The room erupted into chaos. Samantha's team moved to intervene, but she held up a hand, her mind racing. This was the moment of truth. Their bluff was about to be called, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. But once again, it was Trevor who rose to the occasion. Despite dangling several feet off the ground in the grip of an alien warrior, he managed to look more annoyed than terrified. Oi, watch the merchandise, mate, Trevor shouted. You trying to trigger a bloody catastrophe? Do you have any idea what happens when you manhandle a walking biological weapon? Zark hesitated, his grip loosening slightly. What happens? Trevor's eyes widened dramatically. Well, I don't rightly know, do I? It's never happened before. Could be a localized gravity well, could be a temporal distortion. Hell, for all we know, you could be setting off a chain reaction that'll turn half the city into a quantum singularity. The other Vexcar warriors took a step back, their weapons wavering. Even Zark seemed uncertain, his glowing eyes darting between Trevor and the rest of the team. Samantha seized the moment. Sub-Commander, I strongly advise you to release Mr. Watson immediately. While we've done our best to integrate these weapons safely, they can be unpredictable when agitated. Unless you'd like to be at the center of an uncontrolled weapons test, I suggest we all take a step back and continue our discussions diplomatically. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, Zark lowered Trevor to the ground. Perhaps we have been too hasty in our assessment of your species, the sub-commander said, his voice losing some of its earlier bravado. As Trevor straightened his clothes, looking far too pleased with himself, Samantha stepped forward. Sub-Commander, I believe we've demonstrated that Earth is not a world to be trifled with. However, we're not seeking conflict. Perhaps it's time we discussed more mutually beneficial arrangements. Zark nodded slowly. Yes, I believe that would be wise. I will need to consult with Supreme War Master Cragthor. As the Vexcar delegation retreated to their shuttle to communicate with their ship, Samantha's team gathered around her, a mix of relief and disbelief on their faces. I can't believe that worked, Dr. Kapoor whispered, her eyes wide. Ambassador Zix's 3 eyes blinked rapidly. Truly, the ingenuity of humans never ceases to amaze me. Though I must admit, I'm still not entirely sure what a quantum singularity is. Samantha laughed, the tension of the past few hours finally breaking. To be honest, Ambassador, I'm not sure Trevor knows either. But it sounded good, and that's what mattered. As they waited for the Vexcar to return, Samantha marveled at the unlikely group of heroes that had come together to save Earth. A xenobiologist, an alien ambassador, a brilliant but impulsive Australian diplomat, and a team of dedicated scientists. Together, They had managed to bluff their way out of an alien invasion. The fate of Earth now hung in the balance, waiting on the decision of the Vexcar. But whatever came next, Samantha knew that humanity, with all its flaws and misunderstandings, had proven itself capable of rising to even the most absurd challenges the universe could throw at it. As the Vexcar shuttle's doors began to open once more, Samantha straightened her shoulders, ready to face whatever came next. After all, if they could turn a third-leg misunderstanding into Earth's greatest defense, who knew what other miracles they might accomplish? Triumph of understanding. The Vexcar shuttle's doors opened, and Sub-Commander Zark emerged, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming in the afternoon sun. Samantha Chen and her unlikely team of heroes stood their ground, a mix of anticipation and dread coursing through them. Zark's four eyes scanned the group before settling on Samantha. "Dr. Chen," he began, his voice a low rumble, "I have conferred with Supreme Warmaster Kragthor. Your demonstrations have given us much to consider." Samantha nodded, keeping her expression neutral. "We appreciate your thorough evaluation, Sub-Commander. What has your leadership decided?" There was a moment of tense silence before Zark continued. "The Vexcar Imperium has determined that a direct conflict with Earth would be inadvisable at this time." A collective sigh of relief rippled through the human and Trilaxian members of the team, though they tried to maintain their composure. "However," Zark added, his tone sharpening, "we are not fully convinced of your claims. The Imperium proposes a cultural exchange program. We will send a delegation of our scientists to study your biological advancements, and in return, we will share some of our own technological knowledge." Samantha's mind raced. This was both an opportunity and a potential disaster. How could they maintain their bluff under the scrutiny of Vexcar scientists? But refusing could reignite the threat of invasion. Before she could respond, Trevor Watson stepped forward, a mischievous glint in his eye. "A cultural exchange, you say? Bonzer idea, mate. We'd love to have you blokes over for a barbie. Maybe we can show you how we use our third legs to flip snags on the grill, eh?" Samantha shot Trevor a warning look, but to her surprise, Zark's mandibles clicked in what almost seemed like amusement. "Your species continues to intrigue us, human. Perhaps there is more to learn from Earth than we initially believed." Seizing the moment, Samantha spoke up. "We welcome the opportunity for mutual learning, Sub-Commander. However, I'm sure you understand that some of our biological advancements are closely guarded secrets. We'll need to establish clear protocols for this exchange." Zark nodded. "Agreed. We will return to our ship and make the necessary arrangements. Expect our delegation within one of your Earth rotations." As the Vexcar boarded their shuttle and took off, the tension that had been holding Samantha's team together finally broke. Trevor let out a whoop of joy, pulling Dr. Kapoor into an impromptu dance. Ambassador Zix's three eyes blinked rapidly in what Samantha had come to recognize as the Trilaxian equivalent of relieved laughter. But Samantha knew their challenges were far from over. "All right, team," she said, gathering them close. "We've bought ourselves some time, but now we have an even bigger problem. We need to figure out how to keep this charade going under scientific scrutiny." Dr. Kapoor nodded solemnly. "We'll need to create a convincing research program, something that seems advanced enough to intrigue the Vexcar, but vague enough to avoid any concrete demonstrations. And we'll need to brief every male on Earth," Trevor added. "Can't have some bloke dropping his trousers and ruining the whole game, can we?" Samantha sighed, rubbing her temples. "Right. Let's get back to the UN and start planning. We have less than 24 hours to prepare for the biggest scientific bluff in human history." The next day was a whirlwind of activity. Scientists from every field were brought in to craft a convincing narrative of human biological advancements. Diplomats worked tirelessly to draft agreements that would allow for cultural exchange while protecting Earth's secrets. And a global information campaign was launched, using coded language to inform the world's population about the delicate situation without causing panic. As the appointed time for the Vexcar delegation's arrival approached, Samantha found herself standing once again in Central Park, surrounded by her core team and a group of Earth's brightest scientific minds. The air was thick with tension, and the hum of advanced scanning equipment hastily set up to give the appearance of a high-tech research facility. The Vex-Car shuttle descended, and out stepped Sub-Commander Zark, accompanied by a team of beings that Samantha assumed were the Imperium's top scientists. Their exoskeletons were adorned with complex patterns that seemed to shift and change, possibly indicating their rank or specialization. "Dr. Chen," Zark greeted, his metallic voice carrying a hint of anticipation. "We are prepared to begin our exchange of knowledge." Samantha nodded, gesturing to the assembled human scientists. "As are we, Sub-Commander. Allow me to introduce you to some of Earth's leading experts in biotechnology and genetics." What followed was perhaps the most surreal scientific conference in Earth's history. Human scientists presented carefully crafted research papers on theoretical biological advancements, always dancing on the edge of plausibility without crossing into demonstrable territory. The Vex-Car scientists, for their part, shared insights into their own cybernetic enhancements, which were far beyond current human capabilities. Throughout the day, Samantha marveled at the ingenuity of her fellow humans. Dr. Kapoor deftly fielded questions about genetic modification, weaving complex theories that left even the Vex-Car scientists scratching their metallic heads. A team of physicists, led by the brilliant Dr. Yuki Tanaka, presented a series of equations purporting to explain the quantum mechanisms behind the third leg enhancements, which were incomprehensible enough to seem advanced even to the aliens. But it was Trevor Watson who once again proved to be the wild card that kept the entire charade from collapsing. Whenever the Vex-Car's questions became too pointed or their skepticism too apparent, Trevor would swoop in with an outlandish anecdote or a well-timed distraction. "You want to know about the neural interface, eh?" Trevor said to a particularly persistent Vex-Car scientist. "Well, let me tell you, it's a right tricky business. Why, this one time, I accidentally linked up with a kangaroo. Spent the whole day hopping around Sydney, I did. Took us weeks to sort out whose thoughts were whose." The Vex-Car scientist blinked its 4 eyes in confusion, while Samantha quickly interjected with a more scientific explanation of neural plasticity and cross-species compatibility. As the day wore on, Samantha began to notice a shift in the dynamics between the humans and the Vex-Car. The initial tension and suspicion were giving way to genuine curiosity and engagement. She caught glimpses of Vex-Car scientists excitedly discussing theories with their human counterparts, their earlier aggression replaced by intellectual enthusiasm. During a brief lull in the proceedings, Ambassador Zix pulled Samantha aside. "Dr. Chen, I believe something remarkable is happening here," the Trilaxian said, its 3 eyes blinking rapidly. "The Vex-Car are renowned for their warlike nature, but I've never seen them so engaged in peaceful exchange." Samantha nodded, a glimmer of hope rising in her chest. "I've noticed it too, Ambassador. It's as if the very act of trying to understand each other is breaking down barriers we didn't even know existed." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, Sub-Commander Zark approached Samantha. "Dr. Chen, a word in private, if you please." Samantha's heart raced as she followed Zark to a secluded area. This was it, she thought. He's seen through our deception. But when Zark spoke, his metallic voice carried an unexpected tone of respect. "Dr. Chen, I must confess, when we first detected the anomalies on your world, we saw Earth merely as a resource to be conquered. But today has shown us that there is much more to your species than we could have imagined." Samantha held her breath, unsure of where this was leading. Zark continued, "Your biological achievements, while elusive, are intriguing. But what truly impresses us is your species' adaptability, your creativity in the face of challenges. These are qualities the Vex-Car Imperium has long overlooked in our pursuit of physical and technological superiority." "Thank you, Sub-Commander," Samantha said carefully. "We've learned much from your people as well. Perhaps there's potential for a more lasting partnership between our worlds. Zark's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Perhaps indeed. I will recommend to Supreme War Master Kragthor that we pursue further peaceful exchanges with Earth. Your world may not be the conquest we anticipated, but it may be something far more valuable, a source of new ideas and perspectives. As Zark moved to rejoin his delegation, Samantha stood in stunned silence. Could it be that their desperate bluff had not only averted war, but actually opened the door to genuine interstellar cooperation? She made her way back to her team, where she found Trevor regaling a group of Vexcar scientists with increasingly improbable tales of human biological feats. And that's how we learned to communicate with dolphins using our third legs as sonar devices. Trevor, Samantha interrupted, unable to keep a smile from her face. I think perhaps our guests have heard enough about human anatomy for one day. As the Vexcar prepared to depart, promises of future exchanges were made, and a tentative framework for ongoing diplomatic relations was established. The threat of invasion had been transformed into an opportunity for mutual growth and understanding. Later that evening, as Earth's unlikely heroes gathered in a quiet UN conference room, the full weight of their achievement began to sink in. I can't believe we actually pulled it off, Dr. Kapoor said, shaking her head in amazement. Ambassador Zix's three eyes blinked in rapid succession. In all my years of diplomatic service, I've never seen anything quite like this. You humans have a remarkable capacity for turning misunderstanding into opportunity. Trevor leaned back in his chair, a satisfied grin on his face. Just goes to show, mates, sometimes the best way to handle a cock-up is to keep it up. Samantha groaned at the pun but couldn't suppress a laugh. I suppose in this case, you're not wrong, Trevor. Though I shudder to think how we're going to explain all this in our official reports. As the group shared a moment of relieved laughter, Samantha's mind turned to the future. They had averted a war and potentially opened up a new era of interstellar cooperation, all because of a simple anatomical misunderstanding. It was absurd, improbable, and yet somehow perfectly human. You know, she said, addressing the room, in all of this chaos, we've actually learned something profound. Despite our differences, whether between humans and Tralaxians or humans and Vexcar, we all share a fundamental curiosity about the universe and each other. Maybe that's the real key to peace among the stars. Ambassador Zix nodded solemnly. A wise observation, Dr. Chen. Perhaps the greatest technology of all is not biological weapons or starships, but the ability to turn misunderstanding into understanding. As the group raised a toast to interstellar peace and human ingenuity, Samantha couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. Somewhere out there, the Vexcar were probably still puzzling over the mysterious capabilities of the human third leg, and while part of her felt guilty about the deception, a larger part recognized that this misunderstanding had led to a greater truth, that in the vast, strange universe, it was their shared capacity for wonder, adaptation, and even humor that truly made them strong. As she looked around at her unlikely team of heroes, brilliant scientists, alien diplomats, and one irrepressible Australian, Samantha knew that whatever challenges the future held, humanity was ready to face them. Armed with curiosity, creativity, and perhaps a healthy dose of audacity, they would find their place among the stars, one misunderstanding at a time. And who knew? Maybe someday, far in the future, the true story of how a third leg saved Earth would be told, and it would be met not with embarrassment or anger, but with the laughter and wonder that came from truly understanding one another in all their glorious, imperfect, and sometimes hilarious diversity.